Welcome to the Brown&Co podcast. My name is Olivia Barefoot, Agri-Business Consultant from the Leicester office, and today I'm joined with Seb Young, Environmental Consultant from the Norwich office, to talk about environmental schemes and woodland. Seb, we currently have a lot of clients that are in environmental schemes that are expiring at the end of the year. What are the options for these clients?
So on the 15th of October, the NFU announced that they, after a period of lobbying Defra, that current countryside stewardships that were set to expire at the end of 2025 will receive a 1-year rollover extension. So we've been receiving those offers with a time limit of the 27th of November to accept. It's not sort of set in stone that you have to accept, but that is the time limit we have on those. The terms of that agreement are unchanged for your static non-rotational options. So you'd submit a claim in the usual way for the May deadline, and then rotationals can still be edited and changed up to end of August deadline, as would have been in the previous 5 years. It's important to consider that this is only a 1-year extension, so it won't give you the blanket 5-year that we've been used to, and that it will need replacing. That 1 year is going to come to an end December 2026 unless we get another, which there's no telling what could come next. But SFI 26 is coming down the tracks in some guise. So while we've got that buffer, you still need to consider that things are going to sort of be released. We will see an SFI 26 in some form, and that replacement should be considered, as it's only a 1-year term. And also that if any land had been earmarked for a higher tier, or planning had gone into that thus far, that land is now once again locked up in countryside stewardship for another year. So plans will have to be delayed for that time period, because there's no sort of change that you can't opt to take, say, a higher value grassland parcel out of a rollover. That is how it is presented to you on the same terms. So a bit of consideration needs to be given there as well.
And we've seen recent increased payment rates for the higher level stewardship, so as we more commonly known as HLS. So should these clients be applying for countryside stewardship higher tier or maintaining their current agreement?
Again, it's sort of looking at that engagement, and if you've already got an agreement in place, you are guaranteed sort of that income. If you're doing, maintaining the agreement's requirements, that is guaranteed income, without the possibility that if you plumb for a CS higher tier, that land with any, it can't be receiving any environmental payment in order to be pipelined. So you would have to take your existing agreement fully out of environmental payment and basically cease that current agreement, depending on the land area you want to put in, which could, jeopardize those guaranteed payments with no absolute guarantee that you will be accepted onto CS higher tier, with it being, invite only, area specific, and very, very targeted at this early stage. But it's fundamentally important to, consult with Brown&Co consultants and really evaluate what the payment uplift might be against the sort of payoff and what the downfall, like the issues could be in the process, and really weighing up, do I go for it, sort of a yes or no, and coming to that conclusion.
And there's been lots of talk recently with woodland. So what are the funding opportunities that are currently available for tree planting for new woodland?
So the flagship woodland creation grant is the England Woodland Creation Offer, which supports the establishment of new woodland and administered fully by the Forestry Commission. So where others have sort of that Natural England or the Rural Payments Agency input, this is fully Forestry Commission as a programme. But it needs to be considered that this is closing on the 31st of March 2026, and it will become part of landscape recovery. So where at the moment, you can have tailored woodland agreements on a farm by farm basis with areas as small as 1 hectare, going into landscape recovery is going to mean that almost some farmers, we're not sure, could be bypassed, or if you're not in a certain swathe of land, you might not be first in the queue, sort of thing. So if you are looking at woodland planting while that window's still open, then certainly go for it. So, and it's important to consider things like new woodland can include things like natural colonisation. So if you've got a site that's, you feel has potential, it's not a case of you have to, plant the entire thing up. So that's something to consider cost-wise. There is an element of, if a site's got potential, it could be, earmarked in a different way in consultation with the Forestry Commission, which is something we can, administer and organise things like site visits. So, and then payments-wise, you're looking at £10,200 a hectare for the new planting and associated sort of capital items such as deer fencing and deer high seats for shooting, and up to £12,700 a hectare in stackable options depending on the site. So if it's close to people and access, then there's payments for that, water quality, flood alleviation and things like that. So it's really delving down into where your site is and gaining the maximum from it. And then once you've sort of developed your woodland, the payments don't stop there. There's then 15 years of maintenance payments available at £400 a hectare. So it becomes quite a sort of lucrative scheme for maybe an area of land where, you're not going to get in there for production, and putting it over to alternative use might be the best use of that land.
What else is currently available in terms of grant funding?
So this comes back round to CS higher tier. Facilitating those schemes is an area where capital grants have sort of remained open. So feasibility studies for maybe larger scale, higher tier projects. So getting that early Natural England advice can be funded through a specific grant called the PA2. And then with woodland, there's PA4s, which have species control. So things like squirrels and deer, setting up management parameters for those and how you're going to tackle that is something else that can be funded. And just another note on sort of capital grants, it's important I think it's now going forward, they are going to be staggered and very sort of budget restrained. The latest round opened on the 3rd of July at £150 million, and it didn't quite make a month being open. It was shut again by the 1st of August. So it's really, really important to have early consultation and have a plan in place of knowing exactly what you're going to do and where, so that when these things open and everybody's set to press go, you're also in the line to do that as well. And it's also important to consider that the last round, and we think it will be a carryover if it was a theme of that last one, that all these various grants are going to be capped. So things like concrete yard renewal, where previously you might see yourself as almost getting a brand new yard out of it, it's now £25,000 cap for that, just as an example. So consider that when you're planning these things as well.
And recently there's been a lot of talk of carbon. So should farmers and landowners be considering carbon and any associated funding opportunities?
Carbon is a slightly trickier one in that there's not sort of a designated scheme that you can apply for. It's probably one to consider more if you're going for wholesale farm changes. So sort of a change in practice to regenerative agriculture would be, more wholesaling, and then establishing a baseline from that and what credits that may generate. Sort of speculative figures are looking at sort of £40 per credit, but the amount generated and how you then sell those going forward really depends on the change in approach that you're going to be undertaking.
Thanks, Seb. There's been some really interesting answers there, and also shows how complex these schemes are. Stay tuned for our next Brown&Co podcast, where we will be discussing ecology.